Careers generally don't transform from one giant big break that you get, but from compounding very small advantages over time. So, a lot of the time, we talk about on social media or we see some story of this giant leap somebody made, right? They went from a entry level analyst to a CEO in 3 years, or they had a huge promotion that skipped 2 levels. The reality is that is incredibly, incredibly rare. And even when it happens, it likely comes with some type of scope change, right? So if you're going from a manager level to CEO, odds are the company got much smaller, right? Or they became a founder of the company themselves, things like that. So oftentimes when we're in our careers, we're focused on these big shifts. We're like, what can I do that's going to totally change the game? What can I do that's going to totally overhaul my career and make everything better? And with the exception of starting your own business that becomes wildly successful and puts you in a CEO of a Fortune 100 seat, which if you're able to do that, good for you. And I love that. Call me and be a guest on my podcast. A lot of the time, it is really compounding very small changes over time, consistently, until the results start shifting.
Welcome back to this episode of Secrets of the Career Game. So many people are trying to navigate a corporate world that is laden with secrets, cleverly hidden, and unspoken rules to a game that most employees don't even know that they're playing. On this podcast, we try to give you a peek behind the curtains and some tips and tricks to ultimately make you successful in your career and help you progress a little bit faster.
So we talk a lot about hockey sticks in the corporate world where, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to have a hockey stick of growth. It's going to grow so much faster. But the reality is that the first part of the hockey stick is a decrease. It's, hey, I'm making small changes. They're not really adding up to much. Okay, we're at a turning point. Here's where we're starting to increase, and then we grow. And so when you think of your own career, you may be at the bottom of your hockey stick. Things may be slowing down. You might be feeling less and less progression. You might be feeling less and less success in whatever that success definition is for you. We want to start compounding small changes that take you back up the other side of the hockey stick and lead to long-term large growth. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what are those compounding effects? What do you do and how does that ultimately help you grow? So the first is the 1% daily improvement. So a lot of you guys have seen this trend on social media talking about just get 1% better, 1% better. If you do that every single day, it's going to compound over time. If you are investing in soft skills, which I expect you are if you're listening to this podcast and if you've followed me for any amount of time, if you are investing in your soft skills, it takes time, a lot of time, and a lot of grace to yourself to start to see that 1% increase in your communication. We're all naturally reactive. We're all naturally emotional. We're all naturally frustrated by the system, by the process, by our coworkers. And so in order to start to see a change in your communication, it's not going to happen with one thing. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and communicate more effectively with executives. You're not. Even if you're going through coaching, even if you're training, even if you're reading a book like Secrets of the Career Game, it's going to take time, but you have to invest in learning and continuing to develop. I had a client over the last few years who's worked with me on soft skills, and we built a few practices, right? Reaching out to understand expectations, documenting roles and responsibilities more proactively, ensuring that we're communicating trade-offs, right? We've been building these skills over the last year. So think 12 months of every day getting just a little bit better. And just last week, she called me and said, hey, I'm working with somebody who I had a really strained relationship with a few years ago. And they said that they've noticed a huge change in my communication. It made me really, really proud. That's awesome. But that also took a year, right? Those small 1% changes. So if you're looking to improve in an area of work, whether that's communication, handling conflict, that's executive presence, that's confidence, that's self-efficacy, it's going to be small changes. You're going to feel like there are times you slide backwards. You're going to feel like there are times where you didn't handle things as well as you wanted to, but you're going to continue to grow in that area. Same is true of visibility. Every time you get to present your project is a win. Every time you get in front of a senior leader is a win. Every time that your project gets recognition is a win. It doesn't mean that today you're an intro analyst and tomorrow you're a director. It means that you're growing in perception, visibility, and leadership acumen over time. And then the last area where this one is really true is in relationships. So many people will come to me and they'll say, Kendall, I don't get along with my coworkers, or my boss is just too busy. I don't get any time with them, or I don't have enough engagement from my stakeholders, like complaining about their people issues. But people take time investment, right? If you think of any relationship that you have in your life that is worth having, you probably invested a lot of time in it, right? If you are married or nearly married, you probably dated and invested time and had arguments over beer at a bar, right? Like you invested in that relationship the same way as your closest friends. You may have met them and said, oh my gosh, we hit it off so great right away. But then you continue to invest. You continue to spend time with them. You continue to connect with them. And that's how you build deeper relationships. The same thing is true at work. I don't know why we step into the corporate office and we go, everybody should just love me and put up with my abrasive attitude and my poor communication because I'm good at my job. No, no, you have to invest in those relationships. In our last episode, we talked a lot about building trust capital, following through in the things you say you're going to do, reaching out and investing time with people. This is so key. But again, it is a 1% thing. You're not going to take a coworker with whom you have difficulty and turn them into an advocate in 30-minute session. It's not going to work. It's going to take time and it's going to build and it's going to grow. And that's why we say these things are compounding. They don't just happen at once, but every little shift is building on the previous little shift that's helping you get towards your goals. Second thing is there are some small risks we want to take. We want to take. These are good risks, okay, that are also going to compound over time in a positive way. These are asking for feedback, all right? Most people don't ask for feedback. And if you do ask for feedback, you probably don't actually take that feedback very well. I'm looking at all of the eldest daughters listening at this episode, okay? If you are asking for feedback and then you are arguing about that feedback, you are getting defensive, you're not implementing that feedback in a positive way, you're arguing over it, then you're not asking for feedback, okay? All you're doing is building walls. You need to be proactively asking for feedback and you need to be applying it. Okay, we have all gotten bad feedback. Right? I'm going to share a personal story so that you guys can see some of the bad feedback I've received in my career and what I did with it. So I've talked before on this podcast about how when I was coming up in my career, I was told that I wasn't very likable, right? People loved working with me because I was so productive, but they didn't like working with me, right? I was difficult, I was argumentative, I was defensive. And so they would avoid me if they could, even though they needed me. That is a great example of like looking for the truth in the feedback of like, okay, great. Then how do I fix that? How do I become likable? How do I collaborate better? How do I build better relationships that are more constructive and more productive? How do I make people feel heard? Those were takeaways from the feedback, right? Feedback may not have been delivered that way, but that's how I chose to consume it. Same thing was true a couple years after that feedback. I was told by a boss once that I was a diva. Okay. Now, I am an extrovert by force, introvert by nature. So I talk a lot in situations where I am uncomfortable or where other people aren't speaking, right? Podcasts are perfect for me for that reason. I like to fill the space with sound. It took many years of leadership coaching for me to learn when to be silent and when to allow others their space, okay? But at that stage of my career, I was still struggling with cutting myself off. And I believe that that feedback was well-intentioned when it was given to me, that I was a bit of a diva. But what I didn't know when I received that feedback was how to take the kernel of truth that was in there and turn it into something tactical and tangible for me that was going to improve my career. I didn't know how to interpret diva in terms of work habits and work communication. So what I did with that feedback, one, I gave myself an hour to cool off before I talked to anybody about it. This is a good practice when somebody says something that bothers you. Do not run into your chat and ping your work bestie and be like, you'll never believe what Steve said. No, 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 no. Don't do that. Also, don't go to your boss or your boss's boss and be like, this person said this. No, 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 no. Don't. Give yourself time to cool off first. This is good in marriage. This is good in friendships, right? So I chose to leave campus, get lunch, give myself some time and some space to really like decompress, digest that information and try to apply it. And I came back from lunch. I was no clearer on how to apply it, but I did feel like, listen, I know that this individual likes me. We get along well. We work together well. They meant it in a way that was supposed to be constructive, even if I don't know what that constructive way was. All right. So I took that feedback to my mentor And I said, listen, I got feedback today. It was intended very positively. I know it was intended well, but the way it was delivered, I'm having a really hard time applying tactically. So I'd like to talk you through what our conversation was and the feedback that I received. And I want truly advice on what this translates to in front of how I show up at work. I said, the feedback that I got was that I'm a bit of a diva and I don't know how to interpret that. And my mentor, bless his soul, one was like, yeah, I'd probably disregard that. It's not super well communicated, which made me laugh at the time. But he was like, but also, I think you have a tendency to really own a meeting, and that's going to make people uncomfortable. So you need to learn either to be okay with the fact that leading these meetings is making people uncomfortable, or how to lead meetings in a way that allows other people to have more space. Because that's what I think his feedback came down to, was that in meetings, it comes across as though you're looking for attention because you're leading the meeting, even though I know that's not true. That's how I would interpret it. So that was very helpful for me. I took that feedback and I learned to give other people space. I learned to be quiet more. I learned to ask other people more questions, to give them a platform, to get more comfortable with sitting in silence while somebody was thinking through an answer. And that did help my career significantly over time. But the reason I share this story is when you ask for feedback, you're not always going to get that feedback in a good way. You're not always going to get that feedback in a constructive way. You're not always going to get that feedback delivered in the exact right way that you want to receive it so that you can do something about it. And you have to be willing to take that and look for the kernel of truth within that you can action. You also need to be able to ask for examples, how you could measure improvement, if there's somebody you should talk to who's really good at this, who can provide coaching and guidance. These are all good things. But that's why asking for feedback is a risk, is because you risk getting feedback you don't like. It happens all the time. So be prepared if you get feedback you don't like. What are you going to do with it? How are you going to find the kernel of truth? How are you going to really lean into that space versus getting defensive? And the second risk that you can take that's going to be helpful for you is speaking up. Now, we just had an example where I was speaking up too much. So trust me, I get this one. When it comes to speaking up, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because, again, we talked about it 2 weeks ago when we were in our politics episode. So if you haven't listened to the politics episode, there's a lot of overlap between that one and things we're talking about today. They kind of build on each other. So go back and listen to that one for sure. But when it comes to speaking up, sharing your concerns, sharing your perspective, there is a way to do that that is going to be constructive, and there is a way to do that that's going to shut other people down. If you're speaking up for your concern, don't do it at the expense of another person. Acknowledge, like, hey, I understand why you think that or why that's the approach. My concern is XYZ, right? Share your concerns, share your risks, share your ideas, your innovations, do it all, but do it in a collaborative, constructive way, right? What this does is this is going to allow 4 areas of your life to compound in growth, right? Those 2 things, 1% daily improvements, especially in soft skills and communication, and taking small risks, are going to compound and improve 4 areas of your life. The first is your reputation. All right. You are going to become somebody that people depend on, who's results oriented, who's a good communicator, who's easy to work with, who is good at their job. You're going to get a reputation that more closely aligns with the personal brand you want if you are speaking up, if you are asking for feedback, if you are taking the kernel of truth in feedback and implementing it, if you are getting 1% better in your communication, if you are investing 1% more in relationships, if you are getting 1% more visible, if you do these things, your reputation will improve. Now, depending on where you are at with your reputation today, that may or may not happen in time. So I have clients come to me, this happens all the time, and it always like irks me, but I understand. Somebody will come to me and they'll be like, hey, I'm looking for coaching. We'll talk about it. I'm like, hey, I'm a great fit. I think I can really help you. Let's do this. They don't sign up. And 6 months later, they come back to me and they go, I just got laid off. It happens all the time. You know when the writing is on the wall. You do. You know when you're starting to get a bad reputation. You know when you're starting to have difficulty with your coworkers. You can sense it. All right. Don't wait until it's so bad to start trying to fix it. Okay, be proactive. But even if it is so bad, You may or may not have time at your company to improve your reputation by 1% every day. You may not. They may not give you enough runway. They may eliminate your position or do a layoff, and you may be impacted. It happens, right? We dust ourselves off. We go to the next role. We do better the next time. Do better the next time. Take that feedback and implement it. Do not go into your next job and be like, well, I had a bad reputation, but it's everybody else's fault, and then make the same mistakes. Again, I see it all the time. All right, so it's going to improve your reputation. Second thing it's going to improve is your relationships in your network. It is always better to build trust with people before you need it than to try to build a relationship after you've broken a promise. 1,000%. I know you guys know this. You're smart. You listen to me. Of course you're smart. You know better. Build a relationship before you need it. So often people will tell me like, oh, I don't have time. I don't want to reach out to them. I don't know them yet. And they wait. And then they need something. And then they're going to somebody they've never talked to before, they've never built a relationship with, they know they've worked alongside for months but never spent time with, and they're asking for the moon and they can't understand why they're not getting it. Your relationships must be built in advance of when you need them. When individuals join my team, they get a list of 60 names, and their only job in their first 30 days is to complete their training and meet with all 60 people on that list. Doesn't have to be for an hour, but go meet with them for 15, 20 minutes, introduce themselves, get to know that person, understand what they do, share why they're joining the team, and build that connection so that when they inevitably need something 6 weeks later, hey, it's been a while since we chatted. I'm getting up to speed. I'm looking for this. Somebody said you may have it. Any chance you can help me out? So much better. So much better, you guys. Don't wait till you need something to build a relationship. This is true when you're in the job search. This is true when you need something at work and you're internally networking. This is true when you want internal mobility. Do not wait. Skills. As you are getting 1% better, you are able to layer your soft skills on top of your technical skills. This means that if you were good at your job before, you are now great at your job because everybody knows you're good at your job. You have more visibility. You're able to advocate for yourself. You have better relationships. You're able to collaborate more effectively. These things compound, right? And last is opportunity. If you are doing these things and getting better, one, people are going to notice. So many of the times my clients will come to me and be like, oh, my VP pulled me aside, said my communication is getting so much better. Or my VP pulled me aside and said they can really see how I'm improving. Or my boss pulled me aside and said that my strategy was really great. You're going to get recognition. And with recognition, you're going to get opportunities for new projects, for new initiatives, for new innovation that are going to pay long-term dividends. And that's what you want. You want those opportunities. Those opportunities might be lateral. Those opportunities might be diagonal. Those opportunities might be vertical. It doesn't mean you just climb straight up the corporate ladder. It means that you're looking for opportunities that are good alignment to your new skills, that help you with these things you're working on, visibility, communication, relationships, and you're doing it with people who are going to let you speak up and ask for feedback, right? But if you say yes strategically to the right opportunities, there's that hockey stick. There's that growth that we're looking for. There are 3 pitfalls that take place that can break your compounding efforts. So now we go and talk about them, because if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm doing all these things. I listen to your podcast every week. I've read your book. I'm working on communication. I'm working on visibility. I'm working on relationships. I'm asking for feedback. I'm implementing said feedback. Also, quick bonus tip on implementing feedback. If you implement feedback, go back to the person who gave you that feedback and say, hey, thanks so much for the feedback. I went ahead and implemented it this week. I'm already seeing a huge improvement. Close the loop, right? Anyways, so here's the pitfalls that really break your compounding growth. Job hopping. Specifically, job hopping without a strategy. I love job hopping. I have done it. I support you. Go queen. Grass may be greener on the other side. But if you are jumping just to jump, if you got $5,000 more at this other company, or you like the title slightly better over at the smaller company, or Steve, who you worked with before, recruited you, if it is not in alignment with your career strategy, if it does not help you get closer to your goals, into a better culture that's in alignment for your skills, or closer to visibility, it is not the right move. I tell people all the time, don't jump from a sinking ship to a lifeboat with a hole in it. Jump from a sinking ship to a not sinking ship, please, right? But that requires strategy. That requires understanding what kinds of jobs are going to be a good alignment for you. This requires aligning yourself to those right roles. And it requires saying no to jobs, which most people are not comfortable about. I had somebody this week ping me, and it's like such a proud coach moment. She's like, hey, I got offered a job. She was just laid off, got offered a job. And she goes, I didn't take it. I thought about what you said, and you're right. I'm not going to be happy there. Huge win. It is hard. I know it is hard to say no to a job, especially in a difficult job market. Don't take a role that you are going to hate. You'll just be back in the job market 6 months later. Second pitfall is staying in a comfort zone too long. This is where they dangle the carrot. Like, you like your boss, you like your team, you like the company, you make good money, it's flexible, it's work from home or hybrid or whatever it is you prefer. And you're like, well, they said they were going to promote me last year and they didn't. And they said they were going to promote me this year, but they didn't. But like, I really like them. So I'll just stay and give it another year. And then all of a sudden 15 years have gone by and you've never gotten promoted. There is a time to cut your losses. There is a time to get out of your comfort zone. That might be an internal move. This doesn't mean jumping ship. This doesn't mean leaving a good company. But this could be, hey, I've been doing what I've been doing for a while. I need the challenge of something new. I want to grow and improve my skills. I'm looking for a role with more visibility. How do we find that? Don't stay in a role with your head down, doing your job too long, okay? And the last pitfall is neglecting to cash in your small wins for more visibility. I hear all the time, and I've said that 50 times this episode. I hear all of these things all the time, guys. Quick soapbox. Because people come to me, and we all think our lives are so unique. And in some ways they are. We are all living the same life in a different font, you guys. We have all dealt with that difficult boss. We're all nervous to network. We all don't know how to communicate effectively. This is a universal experience. I wish it wasn't. I wish they taught us these things in school or gave us a book like Secrets of the Career Game and said, study this, it'll help you in your life. I wish I do. But instead, so many people come to me and they're facing all of these same issues, you guys. And they're afraid to say, hey, these are the good things that I've done in exchange for visibility. They don't know how to package their wins, right? When you do not package your wins and share them, they will not get recognized. I make a joke in my book where I say, I've never had Excel walk into my performance review and defend me. It's never happened. Excel knows how great I am. It sees my complicated equations. It knows my analysis is accurate. It is not going to do my job for me. It is not going to advocate for me. It is not going to build relationships for me. It's not going to get me visibility. What's going to get me visibility is bubbling up to the top the good work that I'm doing in a way that allows them to further brag on my skills. This means you have to know how to brag about yourself. Now, I will say, if you manage a team, I do feel bragging about yourself is easier because you can give kudos to the team. Like, hey, I want to give the team a shout out. This was a large effort. It resulted in XYZ results. Very proud of them. Versus being like, I'm great and I did so much good work for the company. But if you're having a hard time bragging about yourself, one, you need to learn to package things. Take small things that you've done that are tangentially related, put them together and deliver it as one outcome. And then two, understand the impacts and the results that came from that. It is so much easier to say, hey, as a result of working on this for the last 6 months, we were able to drive a 30% reduction in time to close than it is to say, I did good things. I responded to email. Nobody cares. All right, you jobbed. Congratulations for jobbing. But if you can articulate, hey, the value of the work that I just did is this. The impact of the work that I just did is this. This is going to help us achieve XYZ. That is when you get visibility. That is when you grow, right? So what you really want to do is start this career compounding. It is ultimately the real career hack that separates average growth and trajectory from accelerated success. That is it. All it takes is starting to compound that 1%, getting more visibility, working on relationships, working on your communication, and then asking for feedback and sharing your ideas, risks, and concerns. If you can do those 5 things consistently, if you can grow in those areas consistently, you are going to see immense growth and you're going to outpace and outperform 99% of the people that you work with. I think it's hard not to get stuck in the comparison game. We're not going to spend too much time on this today, but just to have said I said it, it is hard not to look right and left and see what everybody else is doing. I get it. It's hard not to look at Scott that you went to college with and be like, oh, he's a CEO now, I'm behind. It's hard not to do those things. But what's even harder than comparison is not doing anything for yourself and expecting things to change. They're not going to. If what you're doing today is not leading to rapid growth and rapid succession, then you need to change something if you want rapid growth and rapid succession. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's episode and you got some fruit and some things you can go start doing out of it. If you liked it, go ahead and leave us 5 stars. Otherwise, we will see you back here next week for another great episode.